Good morning. My name is Peggy Connors and I'm here from the NH Dietetic Association and Parkland Medical Center. This morning I'm here with Christine Lauer from Nutrition Now and Catholic Medical Center. We are Eat Right New Hampshire and we're here to talk to you today about celiac disease and gluten-free diet and what the gluten-free diet can do to help you towards a healthier, happier life. Because, remember, health happens one bite at a time, right, Christine?
Right, and
Good
you can
morning.
change with your very next bite.
We will change with our very
So
next
we'll
bite.
we'll help.
We'll help you change with your very next bite. So, Christine, tell me, what is this celiac disease that everybody's talking about?
Right, you hear it all the time, celiac or gluten intolerance, but celiac disease, and that's a little bit different. And what happens with celiac is your body cannot tolerate gluten whatsoever. So when it goes through your intestines, inside your intestines that line your intestinal tract, you have these little villi, and they float around so that all your protein and your foods can attach to it and your probiotics can attach to it. Well, when you have celiac disease, which more and more people do nowadays, I think the last time I checked, it was 1 in every 133, then it was 1 in every 90. I mean, so it's really increasing. What happens is the villi are destroyed.
It doesn't like the gluten in the wheat.
Right, and it destroys your intestinal tract, so the eventually absorption, sometimes even symptoms could be pain. You're doubled over every time you eat anything with wheat or oats, because some oats are not gluten-free, or barley
Or rye.
or rye.
So what is gluten?
Well, gluten is the protein part of the wheat. If you took dough or bread and you ran it under water and you kept running it under water, what would be left would form a little ball, and that's the gluten.
That is what hurts your intestinal tract.
Yes, that's where the intolerance begins.
So if you have this intolerance, we have gluten in our everyday life everywhere, bread and pasta and desserts and cereals, and how does somebody live without all of these items?
Well, the unfortunate part is we actually have more wheat and more gluten in our diets today than mankind has ever had through the history of our life on the planet.
And why is
that? And it's increased in the past 50 years, but primarily after 1970. And it's just, we have an industry, and we went into a low-fat craze. We used to have the food pyramid where they pushed all those grains on the bottom of the pyramid. So it just kept increasing exponentially, but now I think it's overdone. So our bodies can't handle it anymore. So the best thing for diet is to really, with celiac, you have to 100% eliminate all sources of gluten from your diet.
Well, how would you know if you really had celiac or if it was something else?
Well, it has to be diagnosed by a doctor because it could be IBS, irritable bowel, it could be an allergy to something else. You could mistake it for lactose intolerance at first, But as symptoms keep going on, you go to your doctor, and you can't diagnose it from a colonoscopy, but they might get an idea that there's something going on in your intestinal tract. However, it has to be done by a blood test.
They do a biopsy with that blood. And that's how they diagnose it.
Yes.
So some people have said to me, well, I'll just eliminate some wheat and see what happens.
Don't do that until you go to your doctor, because if you do that your own diet and then you go and be tested, it won't show up. It might not show up.
And you might not be right. It might not be that.
Correct.
It might be something else that's in the bread that you're eating that might be the problem.
And
for
you want a diagnosis. It's interesting because back in the late 70s, early 80s, I worked with a man who was a salesman on the road, and he had excruciating pain. He'd double over in pain just from eating, and no one could figure out why. And it took months to figure out that he had celiac, and no one had ever heard of that. So it was very difficult for him to get a diagnosis. But now it's much easier because doctors will run an antibody test, IgE. They'll run, I'm not sure 100% of all the specific tests they do, but the doctors have to test you for this. And it sometimes runs in the family. So if you have it, you may want to get other family members tested.
If you have a hard time feeding your child, or if he has a lot of diarrhea, you might want to take a look at
Right, or he complains,
or
she complains of stomach pains, or food doesn't seem to be. You really want to look at that GI tract and make sure that they're just not experiencing some discomfort or pain and they're not able to express it to you.
Right. So now that we have our diagnosis,
what do we eat?
What do we do when we go to the grocery store?
All right. Actually, it can be a lot of fun. And I brought a bunch of books that are primarily, they are 100% gluten-free. So you can see that there are many, many diets. Some of them are, we talk about fad diets, etc. I'm not going to put them all in that category at all because they really are trying to go back to how did human beings eat before this past 75 years, this modern era.
Whole foods.
What type of foods primarily did we eat? And we didn't eat as many grains because I'll say 12,000 years ago, agriculture, domestication of wheat, all of that began.
There, yeah.
So we have a relatively short period of time, and believe me, we didn't eat the amount of wheat and the processing of the wheat that they have today. We don't even eat the same strain of wheat that they ate, for 8,000 years. And basically, they changed wheat in around 1960. So they changed it so that we could feed the world. The problem is that may be possibly the wheat that is way too much at this point in time. So I'd like to point out a few books before we go through the grocery store.
What have we here?
Now, wheat belly, everybody's heard of. Your doctor may agree or disagree, but basically they are saying, no gluten at all, no wheat. It's gone out of everything. And they show you, there's a cookbook that goes with it as well. Very popular. There's a Grain Brain book out now that relates wheat and gluten and all of that to Alzheimer's and stuff. So they really try to pull you back on the amount, if not 100%. Perfect Health Diet, which actually is one that I really enjoy because they allow a lot of foods we'll talk about today, like yams and garnet yams and things of that nature, and rice. They really like that in here. So it's not as low carb as some of these others.
But it is still gluten-free.
It is 100% grain-free, gluten-free.
Not to confuse low carb with gluten. There are carbs that are not wheat.
Yes, thank you very much. You also have a series called The Primal Blueprint by Mark Sisson, 100% gluten-free. It also happens to be dairy-free for people that are looking for that too. Blood Sugar Solution, this is a very popular book out today. And Dr. Hyman, you can see him all over public, broadcasting. And he has, this is a #1 seller. It is gluten-free, grain-free. So
all grains.
All grains, believe it or not. So, but it's a very good read, and he really works on reducing insulin resistance. So it's not there for celiac, but it certainly works well for celiac as well. The other thing that most people have heard about today, and this is a huge movement around the world, is paleo. All right, so that's the hunter-gatherer, folks. There's a slow cooker, which is great when in times of very busy times, Peggy.
Yes.
Comfort foods for paleo. So really what they're doing is they're just removing the grain. They're using almond flour and coconut flour, which actually works quite well.
Now, that wasn't there 2,000 years ago, though, either.
Almond flour and coconut flour, probably not. So maybe we could overdo that too. But the way that they cook it minimizes that. So what I'd like to show you is basically what types of foods that we can actually eat when we go into the supermarket. Because it's not necessarily a diagnosis of deprivation. It's one of regaining health.
One of the things that I think a lot of people feel like when they say that, you have to go gluten-free, they immediately have to go to the store and every item they buy has to say gluten-free. Well, if you stay to the outside of the store and stay in your fruits and vegetables and meats, etc., for the most part, you're going to find that.
Yes. And when you're looking at,
Excuse me.
You're not allergic to gluten, right?
No, I'm not.
Right, okay. So let's start with some of the things. Right over here, right in front of you, Peggy, what are these? These are vegetables. Fresh vegetables. And you can buy them prepackaged, chopped up. I love this one.
All ready to go.
There's 7 different vegetables in there. You can make a salad out of it. You can put sauerkraut on it. You can put olive oil dressing and your fats, your oils, even butter. There is no gluten in those items. The vegetables, you just put it in a steamer and away you go, or eat them raw.
You can even take, if you are in a small apartment and you don't have a lot of cooking equipment, you can take any fresh vegetable, put it in a bowl, put it in with a little water, and steam it in your microwave.
Absolutely, yes,
so
you can.
You don't have to have a lot of cooking equipment to take care of fresh vegetables. You can bake a potato in a microwave. You can take a potato, bake it in the microwave, scoop it out, and mash it up a little bit and have mashed potatoes out of a microwave. It doesn't have to be.
It's a very quick cook. There's a new item out, and I don't know that much about it. It's called New Wave. So if you're in your own apartment or a dormitory, there's no heat associated with it. You can put your hand on it.
It's called induction.
Magnetic
Yes.
induction. 'Cause
It's a magnetic
you can
induction.
put a cast iron pan
You can
on
put
it.
your hand here. Then when you put a pan on it,
It cooks?
it activates the heat.
Okay, but
The
I think
pan
you
will
can take
activate
it
the
off
heat.
and put your hand on
Yes,
it.
you
and
take it
still
off,
not hot.
immediately put your hand on it. It's kind of magic.
In a way, I'm not too
kinda
familiar with it, but I
magic.
thought it was interesting. So fresh vegetables, they are 100% gluten-free. So eat them and
As much-
enjoy them, because we do need to eat at least a couple of cups. We lost some of our fresh
Now,
vegetables already.
There's not any fruit here, but
No,
all fruit is obviously, anything that you can take off a tree or dig out of the ground
right.
is gluten-free,
And whole fruit is,
except for the wheat itself.
right. So you don't want, well, apple pie is not gluten-free.
No, obviously, I'm saying the fresh fruit or the fresh vegetable
So
right off
bake
the
some
tree.
apples for holiday seasons or special
There you
occasions.
go. Instead of putting it into a pie, you can do baked apples.
Right, and you can chop some nuts, which are also gluten-free.
Put them right on
Put
you.
that in there, a little cinnamon, maybe a little honey,
There you go.
and you've got a great tasting baked apple dish, and there's your
For a
dessert.
It is.
And you don't miss anything.
How about some of these little canned goods you have here?
Why I brought these, I didn't have chicken or meat or fish to bring in today, but really, all protein foods are gluten-free.
Right.
Unless you bread them.
Tuna fish.
Tuna fish, there's no gluten in here, it's just tuna and olive oil. This is chicken, and the only thing in here is chicken, water, and salt. That's it. But you have to read the label, the ingredients on every single label, because sometimes they put maltodextrin, texturized protein, or even soy. And you were mentioning to me before we started today about soy.
soy.
So that was very interesting. Maybe we should share that with people watching us now.
Sometimes a farmer will grow both wheat and soy. And he doesn't have 2 reapers and 2 planters and 2 whatever to process his soy and wheat before he gets it to market. So there can be some cross-contamination. And as Chris said, when you read labels, many times you will read a label that says, processed in a factory that has gluten. That counts, because the cross-contamination, even that, because it's in the air. Obviously, think about wheat going to a processing plant. Just the dust of the wheat as it's being processed can be in the air, move over here and settle on this item. So you want to be sure that when you read labels, you look for the label that says it's processed in a plant that has wheat also. Or if people are allergic to nuts, they'll say processed in a plant with nuts. You want to, those plants should be as avoided as the actual product.
And if you have celiac, it is 150% mandatory that you remove all forms of gluten.
Stay as far away as possible.
Right.
And that counts, something that's processed in a plant that has gluten, even though they didn't add any gluten to it.
And you definitely have to check the internet if you have that diagnosis as well.
Well, I think that's what we're going to do when we come back. We will talk a little bit about where there are some resources for you on the internet, and also there's a little bit about gluten intolerance, not completely celiac disease, but a little gluten intolerance. And we'll be right back to talk about that.
Hi, I'm Hillary Knight, USA Women's Olympic silver medalist. A healthy diet and plenty of exercise are keys to success, both on and off the ice. Teaching kids how to eat right will give them the fuel they need to be at their very best.
Growing bodies need lots of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, lean protein, and low-fat dairy. Making sure kids get all the nutrients they need will help them focus in school, stay energized, and maintain good health. A registered dietitian can work with your family to help you create nutritious meals you will love.
And don't forget to exercise. Kids need 60 minutes of physical activity every day to maintain a healthy weight and prevent illness. I prefer hockey, but any kind of activity is great. Whether it's playing a team sport, a game on the playground, or in the yard as a family, get out and get active. Visit kidseatright.org for more information and to find a registered dietitian near you.
Hi, I'm Peggy Connors from Parkland Medical Center and the New Hampshire Dietetic Association. Christine Lauer from Nutrition Now and
Catholic
Medical Center. And I are here to talk to you today about gluten, celiac disease, and some of the ways that we can help you be better one bite at a time through taking care of yourself if you have celiac disease. So Christine, we were talking about the internet and how you can use it for resources.
Well, the beauty of the internet, obviously, is that you can Google or do a search engine, whatever search engine you want, and a lot of information comes up. But you may want to start with the official websites and then branch out from there, because you'll get a lot of information. Some of it will be anecdotal, some of it will be what worked for one individual personally or a group of people. But you want to really look at, like for the American Dietetic Association, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics.
We
all
have a
right?
new name for our association.
Right. Well, it's a year old, so I don't know why I forgot it.
It's
but
still new.
right.
The
it is new.
Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics.
You
And
can check there.
Their website will direct you right to some information. One of the things you want to be careful of out on the web is that people that are selling gluten-free products might kind of get high up on the totem pole. So you want to get rid of that and go for the information first.
Clearinghouse information, that type of thing, PubMed.
Right, and the Gluten Association of America, that's a fantastic website out there that'll give you a lot of information.
And it's not, what I want to say, a lot of times people will get diagnosed and they feel very, very deprived after this diagnosis. If you
Overwhelmed.
Yes, overwhelmed and then deprived because everything, because we've eaten it in excess, that they enjoyed before, it's relearning. So it's sort of baby steps, but if you really start looking at new cookbooks and you grab onto it, you actually end up far healthier than people that are still eating all that other junk. And I have to say,
benefits.
you can have some gluten-free breads or gluten-free products, but don't go and just change everything that you had here to gluten-free bread or gluten-free pizza dough or gluten-free crackers
Cereal.
or gluten-free cereal or gluten-free. Just start eating a little differently. I had soup for breakfast this morning, so think outside the box. Sometimes I have green beans and eggs.
For breakfast.
Or yam and eggs, so you just start thinking a little differently and enjoying it. And you can always put the proteins with it too.
Well, you were talking before about 12,000 years ago when they weren't eating grain
As much, right.
as much.
They just
I
started.
don't think the cavemen got up in the morning and said, well, we'll have muffins and eggs.
No, that didn't
They had
exist.
whatever. That's how we evolved. They ate what was there at the moment. So
Right.
it might not have been soup, but it could have been something close to soup.
It could have been the innards of an animal. But it could
Exactly.
be anything. But there was no gluten in it at that time, especially the caveman Paleolithic era compared to the Neolithic, which was when grains began.
Came about.
So it's relatively new, and I think we have adjusted. We just haven't adjusted to the past 75 years where it's just exponentially increased, overwhelming. And really, when you start reading the ingredients on the labels, you look at all those ingredients and say, what the heck is this? So it's all combined. So if you look fresh, vegetables, fruit, protein, chicken, meat, fish, pork, all of those items, and
That can be.
oils and fats, those are
And
all
that can
gluten-free.
be the basis if you just think, like I said, about going around the outside of the grocery store and stay away from the inside, those inside aisles. Keep those for the paper towels and toilet paper that
Right,
you have to
right.
get, and stay
Right.
away from those other aisles.
I suppose you could get some legumes and things like that. They're probably
Well,
not.
also I think one of the things that people miss the most is pasta.
Yes.
So how can we deal with pasta on a gluten-free
well,
diet?
you know what's
Because
interesting? Because everybody loves pasta.
Pasta is made from wheat.
But you know what's interesting? I don't have a gluten allergy or a gluten intolerance. I don't have celiac disorder. However, I haven't had any pasta for a long time. And
Really?
I use shredded zucchini or spaghetti squash. So I have gotten so used to just loading up my spaghetti squash, which is very easy. I buy the whole squash. And it's a low-carb vegetable, if you're
Very
concerned
low.
about that, right? And I don't want to cut it and dice it and put it in the oven and wait an hour and a half, put some water in there. So I just take the darn thing, put it in a pot on top of my stove, boil it for 20 minutes, bing, bang, done.
You're done.
Yeah, so then, you cool it, the outside, you cut it, take the seeds out, and then with a fork, you just go like this, and what do you have? It's like angel hair pasta.
It is.
And it's delicious.
And you can do anything with it. You can put sauces on it. You can eat it with just a little oil or butter on it. You treat it just like a pasta.
Right, and if your family isn't gluten intolerant or other members don't have celiac, they obviously, a lot of people, they like what they like. They want that pasta still. It's very easy just to cook a little bit of spaghetti squash for yourself on the side and not change anything else in the meal.
And you can also, if you are a celiac disease person, you can get pasta that is gluten-free. You can
Yes.
get a whole wheat pasta that is
Yes, you
gluten-free.
can.
If you really
And
have to have some
I think
every
I like
once in
the
a while.
rice ones the best myself.
Made
where
with
there's
rice flour.
Right. I think that's what works best for me. But there's there are some made with corn, and they're coming up with all kinds of new things all the time.
I think the corn one tends to fall apart a little bit more than the rice flour one. I think it tends
Right.
to stay together more.
Right.
That is the issue when you do get gluten-free products. The gluten is also the thing that helps products hold together.
You're right.
And since you don't have that
Guess what?
using rice flour or corn flour, they tend to be a little more fragile. So you have a piece of bread that has been made with rice flour or
They're crumbly.
they're
more
very
crumbly.
crumbly. It doesn't hold. It's not as sturdy as the bread made with gluten.
Right, I've
so
tried
you will
some.
see a difference.
And sometimes with the gluten-free, you see other things, like there might be a little sugar or something in the bread. So you really want to read the labels. I mean, this is something that is just flour. There are very few ingredients in here. But obviously, if you have gluten intolerance or celiac, that's out.
You're out.
Completely gone. So we don't want it in that case. I also was checking this, popcorn and things like that. There's a lot of stuff. Most of the stuff, you have to be careful, will have maltodextrin or texturized, some types of flavorings, and they could have gluten in it.
That's one of the things, if you go out on the website and you do your research, they will give you a list of additives. They'll have funny names like maltodextrin, and you don't know, well, what is that? I don't know if there's gluten in it. They will give you a list of all the items, additives.
Because that could come from wheat or corn.
Correct.
And we
It'll
don't know.
give you the list of all the additives that have gluten in it, which is very, very helpful for somebody who is celiac disease.
And this one, I was surprised. I don't have my glasses on, but it looked like there wasn't any gluten in that. So I don't know if you can confirm that, but
I
even
don't
we
think
have
so.
to read the labels. You cannot
Sunflower
assume.
oil, whey, buttermilk, and salt.
Yeah, it looks
So
like
you're okay.
right, or a plain popcorn with oil or olive oil or potatoes. If you wanted some
Potato chips.
that's a possibility
That's
too.
okay,
But
because there's no gluten in potatoes.
eggs, of course, are gluten-free. So even if the chicken usually eats what? Corn? I don't know. But that I don't think that
Usually.
matters. And I was looking for some dessert, so I wouldn't feel deprived. But these are chocolate macaroons, but she also has regular macaroons.
And why don't macaroons have gluten in it?
Well, this one is made with coconut, egg whites, and honey.
There you go.
So, and it actually is quite good. So you could bring that to holiday parties, birthday parties, when you're going
There you
over to
go.
someone's house, and you don't even have
On a
to
nice
make it
platter?
yourself. Yes, on a nice platter. You can tell them you made it. Well, maybe not. I won't encourage
See,
lying.
that's one of the things I think has come over the last 100 years. We didn't used to have dessert at every meal. That wasn't a course.
It was every Sunday, maybe.
right.
You're right.
Dessert was not a course
Yeah.
in our meals.
And we
now,
didn't snack on sweets either,
no.
ever.
And you go to Europe, people don't understand this snacking thing.
They don't
we have.
snack.
They don't snack in Europe.
No.
They
And
have meals, and that's the end of it. Now, they never eat between meals, but it is not. There's not a snack industry in Europe.
No, very rarely do they. I just actually bought a book about French kids eat everything. And very structured eating. They don't give the freedom and the choice, and never a snack. Never. It's amazing.
So they don't go to school and bring their snack with them.
No, and they have one choice a meal, and it's really amazing how they do it. And the kids they eat all kinds of foods because they're never taught. I don't know what's happened to us in the past 50 years, but there's something we could do a show on helping families get back to help the kids
eating.
eat. So
And
that
having
would be a
kids eat
later
right.
one.
And having kids eat
Right.
the way we did.
Oh, I didn't mention cheese, but most cheese is gluten-free too.
Yes.
Make
Make sure you read the label, though, because especially some of the processed cheeses, things like a Velveeta type cheese or an American cheese could possibly have some additives in it. This is a real cheese. You talk about cheddar cheeses and blue cheeses and Havarti cheese, and those kinds of things are real cheese that is aged. American cheese is a processed cheese food, which could have a lot of
could
other
have
things
something in it. And there are more and more ingredients every day, so you definitely have to have a resource list.
Read
And you
that
can
label.
visit a registered dietitian. They're all trained to give you all that information, all the resource lists. They can print out some of the more common things in texture and flavorings and condiments that you might not think of.
That's one of the things, if you are newly diagnosed with celiac disease, your best option is to see a registered dietitian. Any of the local hospitals have an outpatient department with registered dietitians that can help you navigate the maze of the resources online, some of the products in the store. They've done that research. They have lists for you, as Christine said. So talk to your physician, have them give you a referral to a registered dietitian
Right.
so they can help you
And
navigate.
your health insurance, we don't know 100% nowadays,
Usually,
but usually your health
health
insurance
insurance
pays for
will
1
cover
to
it.
3 visits.
Yeah, they will cover it from 1 to 3 visits.
1 to 3 visits.
For most health insurance. So check with your health insurance, make sure they'll cover it, and that will give you a great way to navigate, and you won't feel quite so overwhelmed when your physician says, yep, you're a celiac
Right.
disease patient.
And when you say, what do I eat? Vegetables, meat, protein, rice, okay?
What
else?
about those people, though, that are not quite celiac disease, but they might have some kind of intolerance to wheat?
They have to go by the interesting thing, though, is if it's a little bit of a food sensitivity, I think you still need to eliminate it, but an error here and there isn't going to be as significant because it's not
Catastrophic.
damaging the lining, hopefully, of your intestinal tract. It's not destroying the villi. So they can play it by symptoms, but unfortunately, sometimes it's symptom-free.
Some people then can have an allergy to wheat as opposed to being a
Some
true
people
celiac.
do, right. That's not as common, but they do. Usually gluten intolerance is what's happening today,
Right.
more than even celiac, but
So they can't tolerate it, but it's not destroying their villi.
right.
So it's sort of
But
like
it's
a
not going to,
two-edged
it
sword.
doesn't work well in the long run no matter what. All right.
So you're
you
better
have
off-
to heal the gut. You have to heal your gut. And and if it's eating clean food and real food, fewer foods from a package. I cook, see that package of string beans? I cook this whole thing at the same time. And then I eat 2 or 3 days in a row. I just pack it with lunch or dinner or
You
breakfast.
Eat it cold and whole.
I can eat it cold, but I can cook it and steam it a little bit, and it's ready to go. So I always have something. You can buy a rotisserie chicken, but you have to watch what's in it because they do flavor inject these birds and things like that now. So that could have gluten. So
Could.
if it says gluten-free, then that's absolutely okay. But you have protein and vegetables, and I cook. I keep a bunch of rice on hand already cooked.
And rice is good because there's a lot of variety in rice. It's not just the
Absolutely.
white rice we grew up with.
I love jasmine, I love brown rice, I love basmati, and
I
I
love
eat
basmati.
white or brown. Now, brown offers a little more nutrition, but there's a nice taste to white that sometimes you can't duplicate and you want. So whatever rice
Works
there
for
is,
you.
one provides better nutrition than the other, that's all. What I wanted, we haven't mentioned about restaurants, because that's the biggest thing.
No. What do you do when you go out?
Yeah, that's the hardest thing because restaurants obviously serve a lot of things with gluten. But luckily, even I have a pizza menu here from a pizza company, and most of them, but not all, and they have gluten-free
Gluten-free.
pizzas.
We have one right in Derry that does serve gluten-free products right over the other side of 93. There's a pizza place that does gluten-free.
And you can check online. Most restaurants will list their gluten-free items.
Definitely, because they want to know. They've put the time and effort into the research. They want to let you know that it's there. And there are more and more restaurants that are offering gluten-free items on their menu. And sometimes they will take items that are just gluten-free naturally, and people are a little, is that gluten-free or not? But they've been serving it all along, so they'll label it as gluten-free, which really helps.
Right, it does. So it is much easier for a person that is either celiac or gluten intolerant nowadays to navigate and really feed themselves well. And the food is delicious that they get to eat.
It is. The whole foods, the perimeter on the outside, that's the way to go. Christine, thank you so much. I think we've really learned a lot today about what a person with celiac disease can do, how they can navigate the web, how they can navigate the whole process to help them eat healthier one bite at a time. So until next time, Christine Lauer, Peggy Connors, we will see you.